If I had known the obstacles that existed under the grass and the dirt, the obstacles we couldn't see, we would never have begun the project.
In uncovering, they kept getting larger and larger. In effect, all we saw was the tip of the iceberg.
We never would have anticipated having the manpower to move what needed to be moved.
In most cases, it was all human effort.
We never would have anticipated the amount of helicopter and logistical support.
So we managed to disassemble it and haul it in there with a helicopter and reassemble it.
We never would have anticipated the expense.
You're out dealing with God's creation as well as the elements.
A number of times it was rumored that we were going to pack up and leave because the job was just too great.
If we didn't demonstrate or show our own fortitude along with praying for to be able to do it, they might have thought we're phony.
The Lord's blessings have been with the project from its very beginning.
You just have to have faith and plow ahead.
The airstrip is 1,950 feet long, 108 feet wide, and 2 inches thick. But in the rugged mountain terrain of Papua New Guinea, an airstrip is not just numbers. It's a lifeline to the outside world. The Hewa people of Papua New Guinea will receive medical supplies and emergency airlift support. They will travel to the cities. They will establish trade and improve their lives. Their children will have educational opportunities never known before. The airstrip is also a lifeline bringing eternal life. The Wanakepa airstrip will become a base where missionaries and Bible translators and linguists and teachers can come to speak and to share God's wonderful word.
When we had initially made plans to build the airstrip, we planned for future evangelistic outreach. As it turned out, the actual process of building the airstrip was the evangelistic outreach.
Having had the cooperation of the people and the work effort, is the time to continue on now and continue to establish our primary function of missionary work in that area, because they are ready and they're willing to want to receive God's word.
The project was called A Place to Land. In 1984, the Gutnius, or Good News, Lutheran Church of Papua New Guinea, a partner church of the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod, shared its dream to build 3 airstrips for 3 remote tribes. After survey work, one airstrip site was chosen in the village of Wanakepa among the Hewa people. Then God brought together very different people and partners from around the world. The 147 congregations of the Iowa District West committed themselves to pray and to give $15,000 to this project. Reverend David Berner, with his wife and children, came to serve the Hewa people. Bishop Nicodemus, a local, respected evangelist, agreed to supervise the tribes. Don Sandow, a construction contractor and farmer from Salem, Oregon, arrived as a volunteer to engineer the project. Helicopter pilots, government officials, and technical assistants promised to help. And more than 500 Hewa people from 10 different clans worked together for nearly a year, committing themselves to backbreaking, tedious labor.
Now we'll take a look around the village here. This is the Lutheran station. It's about a 10-15 minute walk from the airstrip site. Here you go, good traditional house for the, whoops, got the focus out there, for the Hewa. And we'll show you the church. These are some of the folks from right around here. They just had one of their children die here a few weeks ago. So that's a grave right by the house. And on down the backyard of this establishment is the small little Lutheran village down below here. This fellow here is the council, by the way, who will be one of the main headmen of this operation. These are all the people who are saying yes, they'll work at the airstrip. Bishop Nicodemus. He's the man I came with. He's the bishop of this area and is organizing all the work crews here. You can see we have a real good approach. The mountains over there are about 2 kilometers, at least 2 kilometers away, which it has to be in order to give the aircraft turnaround time. I'm going to turn 180 degrees now and look up toward the top of the strip. You can see the trees over there at the edge are pretty much the edge of the strip. We'll probably end up having to take out the house at the top there. You can see that there's a good deal of long grass, but they're going to have that all cut.
And they're working their way down the strip now, clearing rock patches and pulling vegetation, grass and weeds out of the work area.
We're getting ready now for the opening service here. The opening service of the airstrip project.
This is the official opening ceremonies. Bishop Nick. He's the one more or less responsible for pulling this organization together. Some of these people traveled some great distance to get here. They were traveling yesterday afternoon, Sunday afternoon, perhaps most of the evening.
So God yet, he got power, long give him life, long you fella man marry long this fella place, not me one time.
The leaders of the tribes agreed to begin on the basis of our word, that we would be there with Don, that we would fly a tractor in to help. We made the condition that if the airstrip was to be built, it would be with the people doing the bulk of the work. It was important that they were involved in that the project was theirs.
Bishop Nick is giving each group or tribe, so to speak, certain instructions and taking roll call.
The people are getting their marching orders.
I think at the very beginning there was some apprehension the first month or so. They had very suspicious look in their eyes over against me.
They had continual meetings in their houses judging the reactions of Don's face to the boulders that he was encountering.
He set a course, and the enthusiasm was there, and I think there was a momentum generated. The women were the principal shovel people or picks or anything to uncover the rock. And the women kept digging around this rock to completely expose it.
A lot of just plain hard work.
The men would principally do the heavy pulling on the vines. They used vines, natural vines out of the jungle, which are called aerial root. They were flexible enough that they could make a loop out of it and tie a slip knot to it. They'd fashion this loop over the ends of the rock. By the size of the rock would determine how many lines we'd have to put on. Every rock that was taken off was gone, and they just simply tackled the next one. And there were many, many rocks there. Even the little kiddies doing a good job. There's the little guys getting this rock off. There was a rock size for every individual size.
And there it goes, down to its final resting place.
It was the people who possessed the strength to get the job done. Their enthusiasm and their determination to not let any of these boulders get them down. And it was the equipment, as small as it was, that encouraged them and kept them going when things got a little tough.
In one case, we had to have 8 lines on it. And they saw a system developing on how to do this. There was a feeling of more confidence and trust, and they could see that this thing was going to go.
Some Bible translators who have lived further up the valley, they told me that this is the first time in the history of the Haywa people that the tribes from the 3 different valleys actually gathered together for any kind of project for more than several weeks. Every morning we've had worship services. We've gone through the crises of the community. There have been disagreements among the different clans. There were domestic problems. There were cultural problems. And all during that time, we had the opportunity and to reflect the good news of Jesus Christ.
This was really something to see, that to see people from perhaps 100 miles around the area, different tribal background perhaps, come together and jointly really put in a massive effort like this and really work together. Maybe before they might have even fought amongst each other, but in this case they did pull and work together. It said they built fires on them and cooled them down with water. We didn't have the patience to wait in some cases, so we shot them with dynamite.
All these have to be dug out, chopped up, and hauled off. This is real dense, hard, heavy wood.
Leave it to these kids to figure out a way to make it a little more enjoyable. They'll be loading these rocks in and trying to muscle them off. He's so small in the hole there, he might get covered up. We just go down in the creek.
It's one of the most important things to do out here in this sun. That we needed a special pump, but we don't have a special pump. All we have is a hose, a guy to hold it, buckets of water, and patience. The water in the tractor tire gives us the weight we need for traction. Without the weight, the tires would just spin, pulling the heavy equipment. We got ourselves a pretty straight line. See the flags going all the way down there? And if we move over here, they line up pretty good.
One of the final touches of the airstrip was to gather gravel from the riverbeds in order to gravel a section 50 feet wide and nearly 2,000 feet long. The people divided themselves up into clan groups, and men, women, and children picked up the small pieces of gravel, just a handful at a time, and carried them back up to the airstrip and made piles of gravel along the side of the strip. That process took about 6 to 8 weeks of working 5 days a week from dawn to dusk. When all this is put together, this handful of gravel at a time, from the smallest child to the oldest adult, you can't tell the difference when it's all put together. You take off from the airstrip and look back, and it looks like a nice white carpet just laid out in the middle of the jungle. The results of the labors of all the people in that place. One stone at a time.
And so it was finished, one stone at a time, one boulder at a time, one people, one airstrip, to bring the message of one God, one faith, one baptism to each Haywa person loved by God, to each Haywa person who will become one living stone, a part of Christ's church on earth. Because that's how God builds his church, one stone at a time.
And certainly my feeling was one of leaving friends behind. I think my biggest impression was that we certainly, in God's eyes, are all created equal. And those people over there are just like us, but their appreciation was demonstrated in giving them personal gifts, things that they cherished themselves. It really touched me.
He says, thank you for coming to Papua New Guinea and the Haywa. And thanks to your congregation in the United States. You've seen all the Haywas here, and you've seen them join together and gather together for this work. They're happy you came and worked with them, and they don't want to see you go. We ourselves wouldn't have been able to do all this, but you came and helped us, and now we say thank you. They ask God's blessings on your going.
Hello, I'm Dave Berner, Area Secretary for Asia for LCMS World Mission, and a former missionary to Papua New Guinea. Ever since the days of working on the airstrip, I've had a special place for the words from the prophet Isaiah, who tells us that every valley shall be raised up, every mountain and hill made low. The rough ground shall become level, the rugged places a plain. I really learned to love those words. One stone at a time isn't merely the story of leveling ground to build an airstrip in the Papua New Guinea jungle. More than that, it's the story of a construction project which included people from around the world that became the means for the Haywa people to come to know and trust Jesus Christ as their Lord and Savior. Countless lives have been affected by this airstrip, built for God's glory, a project that has helped bring healing, education, faith, and hope to the Haywa people. I've seen over and over again how important this airstrip has been each time I've revisited the Wanakepa airstrip. On a regular basis, I hear Steve Lutz, a medical missionary to Papua New Guinea, describe how the lives of people have been helped in the years following the construction of the airstrip. Recently, he told me of the difference this has made in the life of one man who suffered a severe leg fracture.
So Yowaita here is from the North Haywa, about 2 days walk from Wanakepa, where his home is. And he was out working in his garden and a tree fell as he was cutting the tree, I believe. And when the tree fell, it broke his femur here on his right leg. He lay around at the village for probably a week, and then it took him another week before his family could carry him through the jungle, and he was brought across the Lagaipe River on a raft. They built a raft out of logs and put the patient on the raft, and then they have to swim that across. He was brought over to Wanequipa, and then we got the information that he was at Wanequipa. He spent about 5 or 6 days in Mount Hagen Hospital, and then when we came back from the States, we picked him up at the hospital and brought him over here. He's in traction here with a stone, providing the appropriate amount of weight to keep the bone in alignment. And initially he had quite a bit of pain, but he's doing better now, and he thinks the bone here is joined well enough to take this pin out of here. So he's asking me to take the pin out. I'll have to review his x-ray and see if there's sufficient healing to safely take the pin out. There's the first x-ray that we had of Yoaita's leg when he came in, and you can see it's quite badly out of line. And subsequently, with him in traction, we got this x-ray, and it's still not lined up. You can see the angulation here, and by making some adjustments in the traction, you can't pull it out to length because he was already almost 3 weeks from the time of the fracture when he got here. It took him almost 3 weeks to get here. But now you can see there's not much angulation, so the leg is pulled out fairly straight, and there is beginning to be callus formation here. And that's those two. So he's forming a good callus, and probably the traction got out a little bit out of line here. But this alignment is good in the AP direction. So he thinks if the airstrip wasn't there, he would no longer be able to walk. He would be permanently, his leg would be so deformed that he would not be able to walk again, and that's probably quite a correct statement. I think with an injury like this, he would have never walked again if he was not able to get out to proper health care.
Peter, an assistant to Dr. Lutz and a good friend of mine, told me what the airstrip has meant to him and his countrymen.
And one stone at a time, this, through the hard work we did by the help of LCMS, now we are flying in and out by fixed wings, which is very helpful. And we can carry more loads, and we can bring in more helpers like nursing officers and some other spiritual helpers, and more patients. We can fly them out. Like yours treatment, we brought more of the people out in a fixed wing. If the airstrip was not there, we wouldn't do that.
And so the Lord's work goes on in Papua New Guinea, one stone at a time. By building an airstrip, the church has built a bridge that links the Hewa with the world, but more importantly, a bridge that serves as an eternal link through the good news of God's love in Jesus Christ. Love that reaches out and touches the alienated, the suffering, and the searching. Isaiah also writes, "Those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles.